Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to get into something pretty cool in the RC world, tuning. Specifically, those little bottles of Tamiya differential oil. They seem simple, but they can totally change how your car handles.
Oh, absolutely. It's way more than just, keeping things moving smoothly. We're talking about a really sophisticated way to tweak your car's behavior. It's kind of like a shortcut to understanding a big part of modern RC setup.
Exactly. So our mission today, we're going to break down the science behind them, decode those numbers on the bottles, and really explain how you can use these oils to get precise control over steering, stability, maybe even acceleration.
Sounds good. Let's dive in.
Okay, first up, what are these Tamiya diff oils, actually? Because they're not like motor oil, right?
Not at all. They're high-purity silicone oils. The technical term is polymethylsiloxane, or PDM.
PDMS, okay. And why silicone oil? What makes it special for this?
Well, it has some really neat properties. The big one is viscoelasticity, which, okay, sounds complex, but it just means it acts like a thick liquid most of the time.
Yeah.
But when the gears inside the diff spin really fast against each other, like when one wheel loses grip, the oil momentarily acts more like a soft solid. It resists that sudden difference in speed.
Ah, okay. So it thickens up under pressure, basically.
Sorta, yeah.
Yeah.
Under rapid shear forces. That's the magic for tuning. Plus, it's super stable with temperature. I mean, it works from freezing cold way up to the high temps you get in a drivetrain. Performance stays predictable, unlike, some older tricks people used.
Right.
And importantly, it's chemically inert. It's non-toxic, non-flammable, and it won't eat away in your plastic gears or, crucially, the rubber O-rings in sealed diffs.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk tuning. How do we actually use this stuff? It boils down to how thick it is, right?
Viscosity.
Viscosity is just a measure of how much the oil resists flowing. Thicker oil, more resistance. Simple as that.
And Tamiya uses a specific unit for this. Yeah, they use centistokes Ciest. That's the industry standard, thankfully. So the number you see on the bottle, hashtag 3,000, hashtag 10,000, even up to hashtag 500,000, that is, its viscosity rating in CLS. That number is everything.
Good to know. And something I've seen trip people up. The color. Does the color mean anything?
Not for viscosity, no. That's a really important point. You might have a hashtag 4,000 oil that's yellow and a hashtag 300,000 oil that's also yellow. Then a hashtag 500,000 might be red. Ignore the color for tuning diffs. Always go by the CST number printed on the label.
Got it. Label number, not color. Okay, so how does this thicker or thinner oil actually change how the car drives? Let's talk differentials first. Their job is to let the wheels turn at different speeds in a corner, right?
Exactly. If the wheels were locked together, the inside wheel would scrub, the car wouldn't want to turn. The diff allows that difference in speed.
But the problem with a totally open diff one with just grease is when one wheel hits a slippery patch or lifts off the ground.
Right. Diffs out. All the engine power takes the path of least resistance and just spins the wheel with no grip. The wheel with grip gets nothing. You lose all drive.
Annoying. So the silicone oil fixes this.
It does. By filling a sealed gear diff unit with this oil, you turn it into a limited slip differential, or LSD. The oil provides that hydraulic resistance we talked about. It resists the speed difference between the two sides, forcing some power to transfer away from the slipping wheel to the one that actually has traction.
Okay, so it limits the slip. Makes sense. This lets you balance things out then, like steering versus stability.
Precisely. That's what we call the tuner's triangle sometimes. Balancing steering, stability, and acceleration. How much slip you allow affects all three.
And a common trick for four-wheel drive cars is
Usually running significantly thicker oil, higher CST number in the front differential compared to the rear. This tends to create a front pull characteristic, meaning the front wheels, having more resistance to diffing out, pull the car forward more strongly, especially when accelerating out of a corner. So thicker front oil generally increases on-power steering, helps pull the nose around, while maybe a thinner rear oil helps the rear end rotate a bit more easily for better cornering traction mid-corner. It's a balance.
interesting. Okay, practical stuff now. This oil isn't for every single RC car diff out there, is it?
Absolutely not. This is critical. Tamiya silicone differential oils are designed exclusively for oil-filled, sealed gear differential units. These are usually optional hop-up parts, the ones with rubber gaskets or O-rings inside to keep the oil contained.
Right. So if you have, say, a basic kit, like a Tamiya TT02, the standard diffs it comes with are usually unsealed. They just have grease inside.
Correct. If you put silicone diff oil in one of those, it'll just leak out everywhere. It'll be a mess and won't work. You need to upgrade to a sealed unit first, like Tamiya's item 54875 for the TT02. And often you need better drive shafts too, like Universal's item 53792, because the sealed diffs can handle more power.
So definite no-go for unsealed diffs. Where else should you never use this stuff?
Okay, definitely not in unsealed diffs, as we said. Also, never in ball differentials. Ball diffs rely on friction between plates and balls, and this oil would eliminate that friction, making it useless.
Right, wrong kind of diff entirely.
And please don't put it on exposed gears or bearings like your main spur gear or pinion. It's sticky, it'll attract dirt and grit like crazy, and just grind everything down really fast. Use the right grease or light oil for those parts.
Okay, so for folks with those unsealed diffs who want some limited slip effect without upgrading yet, is there an alternative?
Yes, there is. Tamiya makes an anti-wear grease, often called AEW grease, item 53439. It's very thick, very sticky stuff. You can pack an unsealed diff quite full of it, and it provides a decent amount of resistance. It sort of mimics what a very heavy diff oil does. It's not as precise as oil tuning, but it's much better than standard grease for limiting slip.
Good tip. AEW grease for unsealed diffs. And when you are building a sealed diff, any tips for assembly?
Yeah, a pro tip. Always lubricate the O-rings or gaskets with a little bit of dedicated silicone O-ring grease before assembly. Something like Associated Green Slime or even Tamiya's own damper grease works. It helps the O-rings seat properly, creates a much better seal, and helps prevent leaks down the road.
Smart. Okay, one last thing, something the pros think about. Temperature. Does that affect the oil?
Oh, big time. This is a subtle but important one. Silicone oil viscosity decreases as temperature increases. It gets thinner when it's hot.
Ah, so if you set your car up perfectly on a cool morning.
By the hot afternoon, that same oil will feel thinner. The diff will act looser. Your car might feel less stable, maybe oversteer more easily because the diffs aren't resisting as much.
So racers have to account for this.
Top racers definitely do. They might intentionally build their diffs with slightly thicker oil than what feels perfect in cool practice, knowing that as the track and drivetrain heat up during a race, the oil will thin out to their preferred viscosity. It's about anticipating the conditions.
Wow, okay. That adds another layer. All right, let's recap this deep dive then. Key takeaways for Tamiya diff oils.
First, viscosity. The CST number is king. Forget the color, read the label.
Right. Second, you absolutely need the right hardware. Sealed, oil-fillable gear differentials. No shortcuts there.
Third, use the right lube for the job. Silicone diff oil for sealed diffs. Maybe AW grease as an alternative for unsealed ones. Don't mix them up.
And finally, remember that tuning is always a game of trade-offs. Adjusting diff oil changes that balance between steering, stability, and how the car puts power down.
Exactly. And really, that whole process, testing different oil weights, feeling those subtle changes on the track, refining it, that's the heart of RC tuning. It's how you really dial in your car and unlock its potential. So the question for you is, what setup are you going to try next?